Let's descend into the silent room where the child was buried. The silent child. Chain 1. The first wound, where the voice was silenced. Cracks in the mask always begin where a voice was once ignored. They don't remember what broke them. Most men don't. They remember their success, their failures, their relationships, but not the first silence. The moment their soul cried out, and no one heard. Or worse, someone heard and chose not to care. This chain begins there. Let me ask you something brutal, brother. When was the first time you stopped telling the truth? Not to the world, to yourself. Was it when you were 5 and you cried because your father looked away instead of holding you? Was it when your mother told you to toughen up and you swallowed your grief like poison wrapped in glass? Was it when you were laughed at for showing softness and you learned the cost of vulnerability? It doesn't matter if you're 30, 40, or 60 now. That child is still in the room, not screaming, just waiting. Waiting for you to finally come back. They say men go to war with swords, but the first battlefield is silence. Because when you're young and the world denies your inner truth, you don't fight back. You adjust. You reshape your voice. You bury your instincts. You craft a mask. And over time, that mask becomes your face. The strong man, the logical man, the funny one, the stoic. But not the true stoic, not the disciplined master of self. Just a well-armored boy, still bleeding under layers of performance. Let's go deeper. The psychology of the first split. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of the psyche we repress, hide, or exile because it doesn't fit the roles we believe we must play. When you were a child, your needs were pure. But when those needs were shamed, ignored, or punished, you learned something catastrophic. My truth isn't welcome. And so, the first betrayal begins. Not by others, but by you. You begin the lifelong project of self-editing. You suppress rage because it scared your mother. You hide tenderness because boys weren't allowed to cry. You fake competence because your worth was tied to achievement. That's the first wound. Not the thing that hurt you, but the decision to stop being you. But here's the trap. The world rewards the mask. You get praise for being responsible. You get admiration for not being too emotional. You get attention when you become useful. But the soul doesn't care about applause. It cares about truth. And when the applause drowns out your truth, the soul begins to wither. You become efficient, but empty. You become admired, but unknown. You become desirable, but unreachable. And deep down, when the world quiets down and you're finally alone, you hear him, the child you buried. What did I lose to become who I am? That's the question that breaks the spell. Not what's my purpose, not how do I heal, but who did I betray to become accepted? The Stoics taught us to master our passions, but mastery is not suppression. Mastery is the full integration of truth, without being enslaved by it. So if you've been suppressing pain in the name of being strong, brother, that's not Stoicism, that's survival. And you've survived long enough. Signs that the first wound still runs you. You feel numb during deep conversations. You over-explain your success or achievements. You distrust joy like it's a setup. You fear being misunderstood more than being alone. You struggle to cry, but you feel like you want to. You secretly believe you're unlovable if you're not perfect. All of these are echoes. They don't come from your adult mind. They come from that boy. the one who learned through pain that it was safer to perform than to feel. The myth of Hercules. The child who carried power. Even Hercules, the great demigod, was hunted in his cradle. They say Hera sent serpents to kill him while he was still a baby. But even as an infant, he crushed the snakes with his bare hands. Here's the part they don't tell you. The world feared his strength before he even understood it. And that's what made him a myth. But also what made him suffer. Because when you're punished for your nature before you can name it, you grow up thinking your power is dangerous. You exile it. You become manageable. And in that exile, you lose your fire. You cannot conquer the world if you haven't confronted the child inside. Your greatness isn't built on denying your wounds. It's built on looking at the exact moment you abandoned yourself and choosing, this time, to stay. Sit with this. The greatest tragedy is not being unloved. It is forgetting the part of you that needed love the most. Inspired by Jung and Stoicism. So here's your practice before the next chain. Practical work. The return to the wound. Silence for 10 minutes a day. No phone, no music, no stimulation. Sit and listen for the memory that makes you uncomfortable. Journal. This prompt. The first time I hid who I was. Let it pour. Don't judge. Don't edit. Speak aloud, even alone. Find a moment to say to yourself, as if to a child, "I'm sorry you had to carry this alone. I see you now." This is not performance. This is not content. This is return. And when you begin to return, you'll notice something strange. Your hunger for validation fades. Your craving for control softens. Your mind stops chasing, because you're no longer running. This is only the beginning of the silent child. In the next chain, we enter the mask that grew over time, the survival roles we built to protect the wound, and how to break them without breaking ourselves. Until then, walk in silence, but listen deeper than ever before. Chain 2. The mask that grew, becoming what you had to be. What if who you became was never truly you? There's a lie that most men believe until it's too late, that who they are today is the product of their choices. But it's not. It's the product of adaptation, strategic, silent, subconscious. You didn't choose to become the strong one. You were forced to when no one else was. You didn't choose to be the funny one. You were rewarded for being easy to be around when your pain made others uncomfortable. You didn't choose to be the provider. You learned that being needed was the only way to be loved. That's not personality. That's survival. And what survives hardens. The evolution of the mask. In Jungian psychology, we call it the persona, the social mask, the character you play. Not because you're fake, but because the real you once cost too much to show. The child that was silenced doesn't vanish. He gets replaced, upgraded, hardened, decorated. But the foundation? Still wounded, still aching. And here's the part most men miss. Your mask succeeded. It protected you. It made you likable. It kept you safe. But now it's killing you. You built a fortress around a bruise and called it strength, but the bruise is still there. And every year you don't look at it, you forget what it felt like to be real. Let's be clear. You don't need to destroy the mask. You just need to stop believing you are it. Because when the mask becomes your identity, you start performing for a life you no longer even want. Signs you've become the mask. You feel exhausted even when you rest. You can't remember what brings you joy, only what brings approval. You fear being truly seen, even by people you love. You avoid silence because it makes you question everything. You smile too quickly and feel nothing behind it. These are not flaws. These are symptoms of self-abandonment. And if you see yourself here, good. Because recognition is the first crack in the armor. What you needed then, you don't need now. The mistake many men make is trying to improve their mask, upgrade it, sharpen it, make it perform better. But the goal isn't to wear it better. The goal is to know when to take it off. You needed it when you were young. But you are not that boy anymore. You are not in the same room. You are not under the same threat. You are no longer at the mercy of their opinions. And yet, you still act like you are. Because no one ever told you, the mask doesn't protect you now. It prevents you. Stoic philosophy meets the persona. The Stoics taught, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. The persona is the master of imaginary suffering. It keeps you rehearsing rejection. It keeps you fearing exposure. It keeps you chasing perfection in a world that only wants presence. What does true strength look like? Not polishing the armor, but taking it off in the right places at the right time. The Stoic man knows courage isn't about always being composed. It's about being honest, even when it terrifies you. Let me tell you a story. There was once a boy who became the golden son. He got straight A's, smiled on command, did everything right. But every night he felt hollow, because he had become an expert in performing, a stranger to himself. Decades later, he succeeded. Career, money, family, and yet one day, standing in front of a mirror, he realized something horrifying. I've built a life that loves the mask, but no one knows me, not even I do. And so he began the descent into the shadow, into the boy beneath the performance. Practical practice, cracking the persona. If you're ready to take this deeper, here are 3 practices. 1. Ask yourself, where in my life am I most liked, but least known? Start there. That's where your mask is strongest. 2. Choose one moment each day to respond without the mask. It could be saying, I don't know, or that actually hurt, or I need space. Not for drama, but for truth. 3. Write a letter from the masked man to the silent child. Let him speak. Let the adult apologize. You'll be stunned by what comes through. You're not broken. You're overdue. Your silence has not made you weak. It has simply gathered power, waiting for the day you stop performing and start remembering. The child inside you never died. He just hid behind the version of you that the world could handle. But now the world no longer matters, not in the same way. Now it's your inner world that matters. And in that world, truth is king. Not charm, not performance, not strength through denial, but strength through integration. In the next and final chain of this episode, we go where most never dare, the inner reunion. The moment you return to the child, not to fix him, not to teach him, but to sit with him and let him speak. Because once you hear his voice, everything changes. The fire returns, the silence softens, the mask falls, and in its place, a man is born. Stay with us, brother. Chain 3. We'll complete the descent and begin the true return. This is the moment we've been building toward. The descent ends here, but something far greater begins. Chain 3. The return, sitting with the boy you buried. What happens when you finally stop fixing and just listen? There comes a moment in every man's life when the storm no longer rages outside. It begins inside. Not loud, not violent, but persistent. And it comes with a question. Where did I go? Not, what did I become, but where did I go? The answer? Back there, in the room you locked long ago. Behind the armor, beneath the performance, under years of jokes, strength, and silent suffering, sits the boy. You, still waiting. Why he matters. Carl Jung wrote, "In every adult there lurks a child, an eternal child, something that is always becoming. But we don't let him become. We silence him, dismiss him, build over him. And then we wonder why our strength feels hollow, why our peace is fragile, why joy doesn't land the way it used to. It's not because we're weak, it's because we're split. The man forged in fire has never spoken with the boy who was first burned. You've met the shadow. Now, meet the child. He doesn't need fixing. He doesn't need discipline. He doesn't need you to teach him how to be strong. He needs you to see him. He needs you to stay. He needs to know the man you've become won't abandon him like everyone else did. This is the final step of integration, the most painful and the most healing. To stop running from his cries and sit with them, without distraction, without rejection, without shame. What this moment feels like. It's not cinematic, it's not triumphant. It's quiet and terrifying. Because in that silence, he'll tell you things you've worked your whole life to forget. The day he realized love was conditional. The moment he decided feelings were a liability. The time he laughed when he wanted to scream. The 1,000 betrayals of self for survival. And as he speaks, you'll feel something breaking inside. Not weakness, but the shell, the mask, the noise, the lie of, "I'm fine." Why most men never get here. Because sitting with that child means undoing decades of pretending. It means admitting, I wasn't okay. I still carry it. And I've hurt people while hiding from it. But here's the truth most men don't realize until it's almost too late. The strength you show the world isn't your real power. It's the strength you offer that child when you don't run. The Stoic way home. Stoicism is not the rejection of emotion. It's the rejection of slavery to emotion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." That looking is this moment. To sit with your younger self, not to control, not to discipline, but to witness, to hear what you once silenced. That's not softness. That's sovereignty. Because once you see him clearly, you stop performing. You stop chasing validation. You stop negotiating your worth. A practice, the inner reunion. If you're ready to walk this path, try this. 1. Sit in silence for 10 minutes. No phone, no music. Just breath. Not for meditation, for listening. 2. Ask yourself, what would my 7-year-old self say to me right now? And let the words come. Don't force them. Just stay. 3. Write a message back from the man you are now. Tell him, I'm here now. I've made mistakes, but I will never abandon you again. You may cry. You may resist. That's the sign it's working. Integration, the new masculine. This is what real masculine power looks like. Not being unshaken, but being honest about what shakes you, and remaining anyway. Not suppressing the child, but leading him. Showing him that the world is no longer as dangerous as it was. That your heart can hold pain and not collapse. That silence is no longer a threat. It is now your kingdom. And when you do this work, a strange thing happens. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving. You stop needing. Because wholeness doesn't perform. It radiates. What happens after the reunion? You walk differently, not because you're healed, but because you're whole. You speak with weight, not because you're loud, but because your words no longer need applause. You love more cleanly because you're no longer asking others to heal what you haven't touched. You become a man without masks, a king without a court, a warrior who no longer wages war on himself. The invitation forward. In the next episode of this Stoic Jungian journey, we rise into power, not domination, not performance, but inner command. Episode 4, The Throne Within. We'll explore how to reclaim your inner kingdom, how to govern your mind, master your impulses, and return to the world not as a reaction, but as a presence. Guard your silence, protect your peace, and honor the boy within. And if this journey has stirred something in you, subscribe now to Chill, Then Conquer,